Good morning and welcome to E Squared Empowerment with Elysia. I'm your host, Elysia Best, and today I have the great pleasure of getting to introduce you to parenting coach and expert Amanda Irtz. She draws on over 20 years of experience in the education field as both a teacher and a principal, and is the mom who does co-parenting for two wonderful kiddos, one of which is neurodivergent. So we're going to get to hop into all different kinds of topics in regards to co-parenting today. We'll discuss like understanding the challenges of it, empowering kiddos, how do we deal with navigating blended families, and so much more. So, Amanda, thank you so much for being on the show today.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you, Elysia, for having me.
You're very welcome. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, what started you on the coaching journey for parenting? Like, why is this so important to you for co-parenting too?
Yeah, so I really, so I spent 20 years in public education. So I'm obviously drawn to supporting families. I'm obviously drawn to, to what what's best for our kids. And I've always had this deep rooted belief in my life that when we support our kids, our world's going to thrive. And I still have that deep rooted belief. But and today that means supporting our kids by supporting our parents. So a little over a year ago, I was serving as an assistant principal in a middle school, and I was working, sometimes 14 hours a day, and I was raising two kids. I was overseeing all the supervision. I was overseeing school safety, and I was doing master planning and scheduling, like you name it, and I was doing it. And it was a really rewarding job in a lot of ways until my body started to shut down.
Yeah.
And so when my body started to shut down, some really devastating things happened. I ended up in the hospital. I ended up having two major surgeries. I just couldn't be healthy. And I think that was like the major flag from the universe saying, Amanda, wake up, it's time. You have to pivot. So I did, I pivoted. I knew though that when I pivoted, I didn't want to do just anything. I wanted to still do the work, but I wanted to do it in a way that was proactive, right? Rather than in a reactive system. And I say that in a very meaningful, loving way. I love public schools, but our public schools are reactive. And the systems that are in place are built to respond when something happens. And I am at the other end of it, where I want to provide support so that systems don't fail, so that people thrive. And you're going to see down here, just an FYI, I have a poodle, and I'm a really real mom. So she's just in here. My kids are not in the room right now, but she may pop up, and if so, it'll be.
Well, we love dogs, so it's all good. Yeah, it's interesting in the having been a former teacher as well. I definitely agree with you on the reactive nature of school systems. And I love what you're doing to preemptively get ahead of those things by supporting parents. And you've even written a book about co-parenting with your child being on the autism spectrum.
I have. I've written a book. It isn't necessarily just about co-parenting. It's more about it's the clouds that chase us, a journey into autism. And this is my snapshot of what it means to be a single mother raising a child on the spectrum. There isn't a lot on the co-parenting side because this book is, it's about 3 years old. So it really is a piece of writing that captures the intensive work that my son had to do to get him to the place that he is today. It really captures the 15 hours of therapy a week. It captures the food therapy. It captures the stemming. And then it captures, the woman inside of me, not the mom, the woman inside of me who is also trying to thrive, who's also trying to, feel alive. And that is probably one of the hardest parts of parenting. It doesn't matter who you're parenting or if there's a diagnosis, that is one of the hardest parts, is tapping back into your higher self, tapping back into who you are as a woman, or who you are as a man, for our fathers out there, that you can be both a good parent and a happy human. It's not one or the other, it's both, right? And so this book is about the embodiment of that.
Yeah, that's really powerful stuff. I'm really glad that you said that, the importance of being able that you can have both, being a good parent and a happy human.
Yes.
Yeah. So speaking of like how, and when people first start their journey of co-parenting, what would be the advice that you would give them? How does that all start? I'm not a parent, so this is just me throwing the ball.
I love the question, and my response is very genuine and honest, in that, when I started my co-parenting journey, honestly, I was just relieved to be divorced, right? My co-parent and I, we have a really good relationship today, and I only think really amazing things about the human being that is my children's dad. But at the time, we divorced and went through this like really emotional, intense experience. And so I was just relieved to be divorced, right? And then it was like, oh no, now I have to parent. And now I have to parent not with you in the house, right? But in a separate house. And so it felt like the rug had been pulled out from under me, in the sense that everything that I knew to be true in my life no longer existed. And I was already a new parent. Like, my daughter was 2 and my son was 5, right? And so I was
They're little.
I was pretty new at the parenting thing. Like, I had all the strategies from, school, and I knew like best practices and their brain research, and I knew all that stuff, but like, what? I didn't know how to do this. And so that really is where my journey started. It was kind of like, it was almost like an experiment, which is so much of my life, because as educators, naturally, I want to become the very best at what I do. And I want to research and understand and try, and then fail, and then do it better. Right. And that is part of my process. It's the same process that I used when I was in the schools. And it's the same process that I use today as a co-parent and as a parenting coach.
Yeah. Finding ways to give yourself the grace of failure and look for the key moments in there that you can pivot and be humble, yet give yourself grace and challenge yourself more in a positive way, those are powerful tools.
They are. Say those words again. The something of grace, the failure, the something about. You said it so well. You said it so well.
We'll have to go back. The humility. It's the humility and that you give yourself in that, and the grace within it. Because like, it's hard. Society tells us that it's unacceptable to be anything other than perfect. I feel like, in general, but especially for parents, unfortunately, that if you feel like you might be failing, is what I hear from other friends who have parents. It's just like, it doesn't matter how hard they're trying, there's part of you that always wants it to be better, or society says you should be doing something in a certain way. And so I think that it can be difficult for some parents to give themselves the grace and look at their children and being like, are they fed? Are they sheltered? Do they have clean water to drink? Do they have clothes on their back? Like, are they safe? Right. And moving forward from that, and just we do the best that we can. And when we feel like that our best falls short, it's important to be able to be surrounded by a community of people who you can trust, that you can lean into in those moments and say, hey, I need support, I'm struggling. And building community that you can trust in, that is key for anything that we're experiencing in life, I think.
Yeah, that tribe part that you just touched on is huge, right? So, and it's important for both married couples and co-parenting. It's important for any human being to have a tribe. And that was something I really learned after my whole world crashed, right? So after my whole world crashed, um, and I was left with literally just the shell of who I thought I was. Um, I had to develop a tribe. I had to, and it wasn't just a tribe of like anyone. I had to like really connect with people that I felt like both understood me and wanted me to thrive,
Yeah.
right? And those are the people that you tap into on the hardest of days. Those are the people that pull you out and remind you of why you're here, of what you're doing, of why this is so important. And so the power of that tribe is something that I really work with my own clients on. That, yes, I'm your coach and I'm going to be there I'm going to be there for you. I'm in it with you, but you have to bring people into your world. You have to have that vulnerability for others to see you fail, because
Yeah.
failing is a step forward to thriving.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be discerning and have boundaries within that, to have an abundance mindset and not a scarcity mindset and pull in the wrong people out of desperation, to be able to have faith in yourself to carry as you seek those people and magnetize them.
Yeah, it's so true. The magnetic force. So like attracts like, right? And so part of building your tribe is about really going within so that your vibration is where it should be, right? So if your vibration is down here and you are, really sad and depressed, there's nothing wrong with being sad and depressed. And you go out and seek a tribe, you will likely also seek a tribe that is sad and depressed. Okay. And so then your highest potential as a tribe is here. Some people can pop out of it, right, and pull others up. So it's really important that when you are doing this work, that you are constantly evolving, that you are constantly working on yourself within, and you're doing that personal development, and you are working with a coach or a counselor or whomever it is, so that you are attracting like for like, right?
Yeah.
That's really one of the magnetic forces of being a co-parent.
Yeah. And being able to model that authenticity and vulnerability to your children, I think is really powerful, especially in this day and age.
It is, and that's something that I had to learn as a mom. I had this perception that I had to be perfect. I had this perception that motherhood was about getting it all done, holding a full-time job, having a spotless house, like all of the things that we know from like the 1950s and 60s, like that still has trickled in, like that still is attached to women. Let's be honest here. It's still a part of us.
For sure.
On top of being like the only breadwinner for my kids, right? So, there's some of that fear too. And so, as my body started to shut down, and this was even before my body shut down, I think there were a lot of, signs from the universe about, Amanda, what are you doing
Like,
here?
hello.
There were signs for years and years and years and years. And those signs, I kept ignoring them. But I did allow I did allow some of those nudges to shift me, right? And to let go of things. And when you let go of things that do not serve you, that do not fill you up, that do not propel you forward, it is one of the most freeing experiences you can have. And then it gets you closer to having that beautiful, joy-filled life that you deserve.
Yeah, absolutely. You create space. It's like a vacuum. You get rid of the stuff that no longer serves you, and then the positive things can come in and fill the space.
So true. It's so true. It's so true. Yeah.
And it can be interesting, I imagine, when co-parenting, if one parent is doing the interpersonal work, and the other parent is not?
Yeah. So my co-parent and I have been on, obviously, we're on our own individual journeys, just like any co-parenting. And that was one of the reasons that we became co-parents, right? Rather than parenting in the same home, was that we were both on our own journeys. And so as soon as my divorce was final, I did begin the work. I mean, I will be honest, like I have seen a therapist and I love my therapist. I speak highly of therapists. I've had a therapist for 7 years. And you know what? My therapist helps me show up to be the woman and the mother and the co-parent that everyone deserves and that I deserve. Right. And,
Wonderful. Yeah.
and I've had, I am a coach, but I also have a coach. Right. And so I recognize that I can't give and I can't fill people up unless I am also full.
Yeah.
Um, my co-parent, we have a really beautiful relationship today. We meet for coffees together. We talk on the phone about what's best for the kids, and our driving force is always about what's best for the kids. Right? We've both had to step away from like, well, it's written in the parenting plan that I have them on this week and you have them on this week. But wait, what's the human side to the parenting plan? Where's
Yeah.
where is the love, and how does that fill up our kids? And so, I believe that change occurs when one person is committed to the transformation in the work. That's part of the change culture, right? And so I believe that in doing all of this work, my co-parent and I have come to this place together, right?
Yeah.
And rather than saying, oh my God, he's not doing any of the work, he doesn't do all the therapy like I do, he doesn't. And that's okay. That's not the way he does life. That's the way I do
Yeah.
life. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's about honoring the paths that we are both on. And it's about acknowledging the really cool, wonderful things that each of us bring to the co-parenting relationship and to our kids' lives.
That's beautiful. I
Thank
love that. Looking at the human aspects of co-parenting.
you.
Yeah, I wish I got to hear about that more. So you see a lot of like your clients for parenting, coaching, whatnot. And what do you see that the most common challenges are that people are having with co-parenting?
I think the first challenge, and it depends on the stage you are in your co-parenting journey. Okay, so some of my clients that I've worked with are in the very beginning stages of co-parenting, and they are still feeling all of the emotion and the turmoil. Like that is still part of who they are, right?
Yeah.
And so that work right there is about releasing it. Okay, so you can't begin to have really strong communication skills and really tight boundaries until you release the junk. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Totally.
Right. And then I have other, one of the biggest challenges that I see, and this is this is human nature, what I'm about to say. It's communication. I mean, it honestly, whether you are married or not married, in a relationship or in a partnership, however you want to qualify it or classify it, it all comes down to how you communicate, not what you communicate. It's the how, right?
Yeah.
And so much of the work that I do with my co-parents and with my clients in particular is about the response, not the reaction, right? So the reaction is the fire hose, right? You got the fire hose and you're putting out the fire. That's the reaction. The response is the watering can. That it's like the gentle stream of water that trickles onto your plants. Okay, that's the response. That's intentional. It's slow. It's thoughtful. So that is one of the biggest parts that I work on with my co-parents, is about how you respond rather than reacting.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. When you first start to talk to your clients about that, do you get some pushback sometimes about people saying, well, like, I'm not reacting, like I'm doing this over here, but then like, how do you break that down for them? Sometimes
Of
they're
course,
struggling with taking the responsibility.
of course. And that again is human nature, right? It's human nature um, to look at everything else, everyone else first before you look here. And that, and I am guilty of that too. I mean, there are days when I'm like, why did he say that? Or why did that just happen? Like, let
We
me
all
look
have
at
our moments.
rather than going within to say, how did I respond to that? What
Yeah.
could I have done differently or better so that this outcome would have been different?
Yeah.
And so, yes, a lot of the coaching that comes into place here is about, asking some of those really deep, some of those really big questions about what were you thinking and feeling when this happened, right? And really getting down, like digging into the layers to get to that root. What is the root of why you are reacting that way?
Yeah. That's what counselors are really good for too, like the roots.
So good. Good. I cannot say enough about having a counselor in your life. And if you've ever tried it and it hasn't felt good, try it again with a different counselor. I believe that it is one of the greatest life forces that you can give to yourself.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I'm new on the journey, but I'm excited for it. So in regards to empowering children, like when parents first get divorced, especially, I think that kids are oftentimes confused or they think that it's their fault. Um, and then maybe people like, I don't think a lot of people probably have counseling for their children to have a neutral third party to help discuss all of that, but I could be wrong. Um, but how do you navigate that for people struggling?
So I think that having a third party is really key. And this is where a coach can come in. And this is also where a therapist can come in. So the divine timing of our divorce was during one of the most significant years of both of our lives, of our children's lives. So the year that we officially signed the papers, right? Signed the papers, dotted line, done, right? My son went through a diagnosis process where he was diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum. And walking through that process was one of the most painful experiences I've ever had. Because here I am thinking about how I had just failed in my marriage, right? And now I am failing my son because I don't understand anything about neurodivergency or being on the autism spectrum. And on top of it, like, how am I going to do this with someone that I'm in conflict with? So there was that layer. And then a few months after that diagnosis, my daughter had a life-saving surgery. She was so sick, and had to go in for surgery. I won't go into the details of the surgery to protect her, but
Sure.
it saved her life. And that was another really excruciating experience. And so my co-parent and I established this place of mutual compassion for each other, that we both loved our kids immensely. And here we were, we had just divorced, and now we're walking through a diagnosis and through a life-saving surgery. And we had to both like check ourselves at the door. We had to throw the shit out and we had to check ourselves, and we had to begin to show up in a way that was best for our kids. So we had a really unique experience because during all of this, we had a child psychologist who was working with us to support our son. So, and I know not everyone has that experience, right? But in that experience, we learned about how to talk to our children about why we were not married. Okay. And this is something that comes up all the time. Like, this isn't a one-time conversation. This is like an every other month deal in our lives, because kids naturally want their parents to be together.
Sure.
Regardless of what the relationship is, that, our society, our world has put marriage and love and this perfect world on this pedestal that is so it is such a beautiful thing, but it isn't for everyone, right? And so the conversation that my co-parent and I have to continue to have with our kids together is, hey, we are better off being friends. We are better off, talking to each other on the phone and meeting for coffees and going to your soccer games together. Like, we are better off this way, and it's better for you. And we will never live together again. We will never be married again. And that doesn't mean that you have done anything wrong. In fact, you've done everything right. You have asked all the right questions, and you have been through this journey with us. And so it's really about continuing to communicate in a very clear way with your kids, that in a way they're going to grasp, like, not getting down to all the ugliness, right? Don't allow yourself to go there, because that is a way that you're to just totally ruin your kids, right? Don't allow yourself to go there, but really to say, we didn't work. It wasn't good. It wasn't good for you. Okay.
Yeah.
And don't give them false hope. And we are never going to live together again, but we both will always love you regardless. So that's part of some of the language that is really key to use with children in that co-parenting journey.
Yeah. I think clarity is definitely important.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so many people from our generation have seen The Parent Trap. So
Yeah, clarity is kind. Clarity is kind. That's one of my parenting heart beliefs. I have 4 beliefs, and that's belief number 2, that clarity is kind. That when we are clear in our language, and when we are constantly being curious about how our language is being portrayed, that is kind. Rather than just saying, well, I told you so, or I said this. You gotta check that at the door too, right? You have to be vulnerable enough that to recognize that you may think you're being clear, but you might not, right? And so to continue down that journey, down that path of being clear, because that is truly kind.
absolutely. And understanding the multiple intelligence theory and how we can process information differently. So what may seem clear to us in the way we process information, to another human being, child or adult, if they process information differently, neurodivergent or otherwise, they might not be duplicating that. So no matter what our intention is, sometimes we really need to take a step back, be humble, and really look at how another person is engaging with you and perceiving, duplicating what you're saying. And sometimes you have to be creative in how you explain it to someone else. Like, teachers know this because we deal with like lots of different little humans or large humans in a room whose learning styles we have to meet. But that's just an important thing. And if you don't know what multiple intelligence theory is, I highly recommend you look it up on the internet, because it can be life-changing, honestly. It's the whole like 6 is 9 meme that I'm sure most people have seen.
Yeah, it can be life-changing. And even if you don't know about multiple intelligences, it's about truly just understanding the human being at the core level, right? And so
Yeah, absolutely.
some of the really beautiful conversations come in about with my co-parent, is that our kids are completely opposite, right? And so the way that we parent my son is completely different than the way we parent our daughter, right? And it's about that constant communication that we have with each other about, hey, so the other day this happened and this is how I responded, and it blew up in my face. And then it's about the other parent saying, oh, I had a really similar experience, but I responded this way, and this is the outcome, and it was so much better, right? So it's about this constant like, oh, I didn't do it better than you, or you did it, or like, oh, look at you didn't get it. It's about, oh, let's learn together how we're going to communicate with our kids. And recognizing that our kids beneath it all, beneath everything. They're all human. And so to just understand that human being inside.
No, that's beautiful. I love that. And just like talking about empowering children is really about just recognizing who they are, right? Like letting them be who they are and not try to mold them into something different,
Mhm.
which, I'm sure can be tricky. I know that some people, parents have tried to like fix their own mistakes through how they raise their kids, wanting them to be that person that they weren't able to be, even if that's not in alignment with who the kiddo wanted to be.
It's a huge part of parenting, and it's a huge part of co-parenting. Releasing that, I mean, every parent, I want to say this, every parent does the very best that they can with with the tools they have in place.
I
Okay.
believe that too.
So you may have had a horrible childhood, and I know those childhoods are out there. I know there is trauma. I know there's abuse. I know there's neglect. I know there's abandonment. I know those things are true. That does not mean that because those things happen to you, that it's part of your DNA and that you have to relive it again with your own kids. No, your power lies within your own transformation, right? And so the shift really is about forgiving your parents, because forgiveness is not about forgetting. Forgiveness is about releasing the anger. It's about,
Absolutely.
you know, that was really shit-tastic what happened to me. That was really horrible. But I need to release it because I'm so tired of carrying it. I'm so tired of it. Doesn't make it
Yeah.
okay. Doesn't make it right, whatever it was, because there are some really horrible things out there that are not right and not okay. But what it does do is it releases you from it so that you can transform and be a better parent to your children. And that's where you are cutting off that generational trauma, right? And you are like rewiring things, right? So that your
Yeah.
kids have a better understanding of, so they're even like one step more ahead than you were as a child.
Yes.
Yeah. And some of the work that I like to do with my clients is actually going back to a childhood moment and really focusing on that moment to talk to that child inside of you, because we all still have our child selves. We all still do. And it's really important to tap into that child and to recognize how that child wants to be talked to, because I guarantee that's the same way your own children want to be talked to.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And for anybody watching who wants to learn more about that, we're going to be having a group coaching call on June 12th at 5 p.m. With Tris Thorpe. And you can learn more about all that stuff on my Instagram account. So in regards to, do you have anything else, like any key things that you want to give people in regards to empowering the children?
So I think empowering the children is so much about what you model, right? So
Mm.
what they see is what they will begin to do. And that can be really scary. You're like, oh my God, okay, I can't do that. Because like, what if it's not right? All right, you got to let that go. You got to check that at the door. So empowering your children is about showing them your own vulnerability. It's about showing them that that you fail, that you make mistakes, but you are also going to rise. It's about
Yes.
acknowledging when something didn't go right and saying, hey, I want to come to you and I want to apologize. I didn't respond to you the right way. Or, hey, I'm so sorry that you had to hear Dad and I talk like that. That wasn't okay. And Dad and I are going to work on that together, right? Because that is because if they are just seeing, right, but they are understanding the context of why things are occurring, then
Yeah.
we are actually disempowering them. We are taking away those pathways for them to bloom into these thriving human beings.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that you brought that up because modeling is like very comprehensive. And when we see children acting in a particular way that's not in alignment necessarily with the values of what you're trying to raise them with, then we have to take a step back and be like, where is that? Where are they picking that up?
Right. Right.
And it's not always the parents are picking it up from, but like it could be school, it could be like their friends and somebody else's parents, but it could be TV. But how do we foster those healthy conversations for kids to feel safe and heard and seen
Yeah.
in order to work through it without like shame and invalidation and judgment and just being like telling people not to air your dirty laundry. That's something that our generation heard a lot, like as kids, and not getting to feel like we could safely talk to somebody else about what it was that we were experiencing with our emotional, physical, like mental health.
Airing the dirty laundry, that's a whole nother Oprah talk, that we could open that door to.
Yeah. And how do you support your parents in that?
So part of the work in terms of, in terms of airing your dirty laundry. So it's so critical that your kids see you come and respond from a place of love every single time. Okay. And it may be really sad and it may feel really icky, but it's that constant response of coming from love. So when we tell our children, your dad is such a blah, 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 we are giving them the language and the context and the opportunity to also think that way and to also speak that way. And so we have to recognize that when our kids see that is also a form of, some therapists would call that a form of alienation, would call that a form of child abuse, right? Because in essence, what you are doing is you are alienating your child from their other parent. Okay, by putting these really horrible messages into their brain about your thoughts about that parent, right? So just because I have thoughts about my co-parent or that I've had in the past, right, doesn't mean that my kids don't put their dad on a pedestal and love him because they have so much fun with him at flag football, or because, he makes really silly jokes. He brings a part to their lives that I don't, that is not my strength. And so I have to recognize that the two of us together are creating that synergy. So airing dirty laundry is something that, and if you've done it, it's just, don't judge yourself right now. If you've done it, you've done it. We've all done it. I've done it, right? But it's about trying to do it better next time.
Yeah.
Okay? Trying to do it better next time. So recognizing that your kids are not your therapists. Your kids are not your sounding boards. Okay. Your kids are here in your world because they have chosen you to be their parent. Yeah, you have been chosen for this incredible journey. And so it's so crucial to find other strategies in your life to get rid of that anger. That and those strategies can be different for every person, right? So for me, I release any pent-up energy every day. I work out. It is something that is ingrained in who I am as a human being, because if I don't work out, I'm not the coach, I'm not the mother, I'm not the co-parent that I want to be in this world. Right. And so that's really important to me. And that's where I can release all that, right? But there's also really powerful strategies like journaling. There's powerful strategies such as like EFT tapping, getting into those meridians, having a counselor, punching a pillow. There are so many ways. And if you are unsure of what those ways are, I know that anyone listening to this could reach out to either of us and we will guide you.
It's absolutely true. I think that there might be a space in there where people question, well, I'm not being authentic with my kids then if I'm not sharing with them in that moment how I'm feeling. But I think My fiance last night, it was so funny how he was just reminding me that there's many different ways for us to engage in a conversation and still get to be authentic, right? Like we can take the moment when we're frustrated and be able to take a step back and be like, okay, what is a way that I could communicate this that they could receive it, right? And because the English language is vast. And sometimes we just have to be more mindful in how we communicate to people. So, for instance, like with kids, like if you're really angry with your partner, you can, I mean, I think, and correct me if you think this is wrong, you could just say to the kids, like, I'm really angry, but we're going to work through it, or I'm going to work through it. I'm frustrated. I just need a little bit of space right now. But you don't need to get into the nitty gritty of calling your significant other, partner, whatnot, like names, or like invalidating them and belittling them, whatnot, in front of your children and putting that into their heads. But kids understand that the frustration happens, like anger lives in our body, like, but instead, like working through all of that in a different way to model for the children, like, this is how you can functionally work through our emotions, to say, like, yes, it's okay to be frustrated, yes, it's okay to be angry, but how do we hold space for that in a healthy way to move through it?
I love the way you just presented that, and I fully agree. I do a lot of work with my parents, and I have a tool that I use, um, that I've trademarked, and I don't have them in front of me, but they're called emo sets, and they're bracelets. And these bracelets have all of the emotions on them. Okay, so because as a human being, it's important to recognize that you have all of your emotions every day. Whether or not you choose to show your anger is up to you. Whether or not you choose to show your happiness is up to you, right? And so this is a tool that I work really closely with my families so that that emotional language can become a part of the context at home. So I like to use the words, and I use it with my kids all the time, and lo and behold, our emotional language is very strong in our house. So if I'm having a moment or I'm feeling something, I say I feel angry. I am feeling this, and I don't necessarily tell them why. If I want to, I can, but I am feeling angry or I'm feeling frustrated, and I am going to go do this so that I can work through it. So oftentimes my kids will, like, when they know that I'm feeling overwhelmed, because that's usually one of my go-to, like, that's my go-to emotion when things aren't right, like that the overwhelm bubbles up. They know that, oh, mom's probably going to go take a walk, right? That's my healthy way of coping with that emotion. And so I think it's important that our kids see us share those emotions, but it's also even equally important for them to see how we handle the emotion, right?
100%.
And so our kids, in doing that, what you are doing is you are giving them the permission to feel. You are giving them the permission to not be okay with everything in life, right? You're giving them the permission so that when they are adults, they're not searching for these tools like I've had to search my whole life. Like, you are giving them the tools so that they can walk through that conflict. They can navigate through that really difficult day at work and not burn out, so that they can
Yeah.
have those really hard conversations and not feel inadequate or like they're not enough, right? And
Yeah.
so it's such a powerful part of parenting.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
With that.
Um, so in regards to navigating blended families, like speaking of sharing emotions and all of that, like being raised with different perspectives. Like for instance, like my parents divorced when I was very young, like 6 months old, and then my dad remarried when I was 6, and my mom remarried earlier than that. And there aren't any other kids on my biological dad's side, but it's still 4 parents with 4 very different perspectives on how to operate in life and parent. And then if you added kids into that, then that can be a whole nother interesting thing. And I mean, just for myself, my brothers are technically my half brothers, and me being gone for part of the time on weekends and summers, they were raised differently in those times when I was gone, right? And then coming back and, like having twice as many gifts at Christmas because I had a whole nother set of family members than them, right? And they always took it in stride and didn't give me any pushback about it, but I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, so the blended family, it is so beautiful. And the way that I view my blended family, I have a blended family. My co-parent has a beautiful fiance. I adore her to pieces. And the way I view this is um, not as like jealousy, because I think that she is, you know, interfering with my kids' lives. No, I look at this as like, wow, my kids get to have three amazing human beings in their life, right? And so, but part of this is also being inclusive in your conversations with your co-parent's partner, right? And so recognizing the role that each person plays. And so we have coffees together as a blended family unit, the three of us, where we talk about what's going on at each house. And we actually go so far as to create like an agenda for the meetings. We use our phones, all the cool, notes, apps that are on there, and we have shared notes with each other, and we talk about things. And we also talk about ways to respond, and, oh, this happened. And then we also give each other a lot of grace, right? Like we
Yeah.
have stripped away the judgment, and we approach our co-parenting as blended families. We approach our co-parenting as a learning opportunity. What's going on at your house? What's going on at my house? How is that working for you? This is how it's working for me. And then it's about really acknowledging and being the human being that you want to be, that you desire to be, that you can be, even with your blended family. And when your kids see that, that is a whole next level of co-parenting. And
Yeah.
that is truly, that takes work. That takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of work, a lot of energy. It is possible. And when you do that, you are setting not only yourself up for a life filled with joy, but you are setting your kids up for a life filled with communication, even in hard times. You're setting them up
Yeah.
for, ways to navigate through that conflict. You're setting them up for having respectful conversations with others that, where you can come to a mutually agreeable solution on something. You're
Yeah.
setting them up to thrive. In
Yeah.
essence, that's what you're doing.
That's beautiful. What do you tell your clients? Because I'm sure you have some clients who have children in those blended families, and those other kids, like they're new, they've been raised in a different way, and the kids are struggling to come together.
So this is again, this is so natural. This is so normal. And I want to make sure people understand this, that every blended family situation, there are going to be real, raw emotions and experiences that bubble up. It's just going to happen. So you need to expect it to happen. Okay. And if it doesn't happen, then you might want to question why it's not.
Yeah.
Like maybe everyone's not being true to their own emotions. So I think one of the most important steps is to recognize how you want to teach your child to get through a certain experience. Okay, so I will speak generally to my own children's experience without exposing too much, because I do deeply believe in protecting who they are as human beings, as individuals. But I know that in their blended family, they have had to learn how to bring another sibling into the family. And this has really tugged at my daughter's heart, because she loves her dad so much, and she doesn't like to share him. She is the only daughter. right? And that has always been so special for her. And so part of the work that both her dad and I do together is about reminding her and showing her that she is and always will be her dad's special daughter, right? Regardless. And it's about having conversations with my co-parent to make sure that there's time built in to the day where it's just the two of them. And then it's also about having conversations with my daughter about, hey, like, what are the really cool things that are happening with your new sibling? Like, what are the fun things that you don't get to experience at my house that you get to have at dad's house because of this really cool sibling, right?
Yeah.
And so it's about helping your child to shift into what's working rather than to focus on what isn't working, right? And then
Yeah.
it's also about, you know, giving your children the tools to get through a tough situation. So I know it's tough. I get it. So my daughter has a phone. In most co-parenting situations, kids have phones, so like you need to get rid of that too, that my kid's not going to have a phone till 13. That's a whole different talk. But they have phones because their phones are a tool to communicate with both of their parents, to FaceTime, to text, to send pictures, to whatever, right? But on the phone are also tools to help them decompress. So my daughter has, like the Headspace app, and she does like deep breathing with it. She has a little doodle and draw app so that when she's feeling angry, that's one of her tools. She goes into that, right? And so I have armed her with strategies and resources so that when it does feel overwhelming, she has a way to get through it without picking up the phone and calling me, because you know what? That's not good for anyone. Okay. It's okay to inform me and let me know what's going on, but my co-parent and I are very firm with each other that we are not interfering with the parenting decisions that are happening in another home. We are supporting those parenting decisions because our kids need to see that we are coming from the same place together.
Yeah. No, that's really powerful to be certain. I was also thinking about like when kids are struggling, how some parents enable them versus support them. So, and that can look different for the different parents. So how do you have that conversation?
Well, so this goes back to some of the work around, I'm trying to find the language for it. It's about doing things with your kids, not for them, not to them, or without them. Okay. So when we do things to our kids, that's the really authoritative language, like go clean your room. I expect you to be at the front door at 8 o'clock. Like that's the authoritative language, right? Authoritative language is sometimes okay, but if you're not providing the support to match the language, then that's where it feels really ugly. So when you say to your kid, I expect you to be at the front door by 8 o'clock because you have school, right? That's the why. Then what are the tools you're going to put in place so your kid can get there? So it might be working for a couple of weeks, like in order to get to the door by 8 o'clock, we have to make sure our shoes are on. Okay. We have to make sure that we've brushed our teeth. We have to make sure, like maybe it's putting a checklist in place so your kid can feel like they've gotten everything done before 8 o'clock. Okay. When we do things with our kids, it's about that language of, okay, so we messed up. Something happened. What will we do together to make it better? All right. So it's about involving them in the conversation of how are you going to grow from this experience? And it's about saying, I recognize that, you messed up here. Back to this piece of enabling, right? So when we enable kids, we're saying, oh, it's okay, you did that, I'll take care of it. Or, oh, that behavior, I'm not going to address that behavior and allow you to keep doing it because I don't know how to address it, right? Or I don't want to address it, or it doesn't feel good to me. Instead, it's about saying, hey, I recognize that this just happened. We need to talk about it together. We need to figure out what the next step is so that it doesn't continue. And that is a lot of the language that, I have this beautiful grid that I could share with you, and you could give to people if you like, but it's about the different points of support that we offer our kids to meet expectations. So
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, I would love to be able to have that to share with people.
you bet.
I think that that is something that we oftentimes struggle with, not just with kids, but in the workplace and with friends and with family in general. That whole like enabling because something is uncomfortable to address versus having sometimes difficult conversations to be supportive and having healthy boundaries.
Those courageous conversations. And
Courageous
that
conversations. I feel like I want that as a bumper sticker. Have courageous conversations.
that is truly some of the hardest work anyone can do, is to have those courageous conversations.
Well, it has been a wonderful conversation with you this morning. So thank you so much for your time. And yeah, I just have one last question for you. Who inspires you in the world today?
Mm.
It
In
can
the
be more than one person. It's okay.
Well, there's a few. My first piece of inspiration comes from my grandmother. She actually passed away 6 years ago, and she was a woman who remained curious her whole life. And for me,
Mm,
that is a really powerful part of how I live each day, is that I'm constantly asking questions. I'm constantly wanting to know more, constantly. Because in doing so, that is how I grow. And that's how my kids grow. And so
beautiful.
she is one really significant part of, of my journey. I would say I have a lot of there are people who inspire me all the time, right? It can be moments of, there's, I have friends that I've watched rise through some of the hardest of times. And in that moment, like when they blossom, it's like, oh, I want to feel that because I want that too. Right. So it isn't necessarily like that there's one person, but it's about feeling into the different experiences that the people in our lives are feeling, and growing with them and from that.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Amanda, where can people find you in the world today if they're interested in doing coaching with you or buying your book?
All sorts of places. My book is available on Amazon, so check it out. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram under Amanda Irtz, IRTZ. And I'm hashtagged all over the place. So just type in my name into a search bar and I will appear. I promise you. I promise you. If you are seeking coaching, if you are looking for ways to improve your parenting journey, then reach out to me. I do one-on-one coaching over Telegram. I offer workshops. I have a parenting group. There are many different ways that you can grow as an individual. So Amanda Irtz, I am with the Confident Parent Collective. That is the name of my LLC. So those are all the places, all the things.
It's fantastic. So many different opportunities to connect. And one more. So if you've enjoyed our interview today and you're interested in doing one of our group coaching sessions on the Playful Pivot, so playfulpivot.com, you can come hang out with me and Amanda on Tuesday, June 20th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as we talk about parenting your parent, the sandwich generation, as you attempt to care for both children and your elderly parents. So we hope that you join us there and that you've enjoyed today's interview. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye, everybody.